The morning Mark Sullivan emptied our lives, he made me coffee first. I remember the mug in my hands, still warm, when the bank's automated line told me our joint savings account had a balance of $11.40. $47,000 gone in a single afternoon the day before, while I was at work and our daughter was at daycare finger painting a sun. I called him 9 times. I remember standing in the kitchen of our little rented house in Clintonville on the north side of Columbus, Ohio, listening to his phone ring into a voicemail that was already full. Nora was 3. She was asleep down the hall with her thumb in her mouth, and I was holding a coffee her father had made me so that everything would look normal for one more morning. He had kissed my forehead. He had said, "Have a good day, Di." He had already booked the flight. Here is the thing I did not understand yet, standing there with $11 to my name and a sleeping child and a coffee going cold. The money was not the worst thing he took. The money was just the first thing. I did not scream. I put the mug down. I went and sat on the edge of Nora's bed and watched her breathe. And I made myself a promise I did not yet know how to keep. My name is Diane Kessler. I am 48 years old. I run the people and training division of a logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. And I go by my mother's name now, not the one I married. Welcome to her silent triumph. Get comfortable. Every woman in these stories was underestimated by someone who should have known better. Hit that like button and tell me where you're watching from. 4 years ago, the man I married drained our savings and disappeared. And then he did something quieter and far more expensive. He told everyone it was my fault, and a whole town believed him. Today, that same man sat in the front row of a room, waiting for me to decide whether he was ready to be trusted again. He did not know the woman at the front of that room was me. Not at first. But before I take you into that room, I have to take you back to the life I thought I was safe inside, and show you exactly how quietly a person can take it apart. Before all of it, I thought I had done everything right. I met Mark at 29. He was charming in the way that makes other people feel chosen just by standing near him. I was steady, organized, the person friends called when they needed a resume fixed or a hard conversation rehearsed. I worked in human resources at a mid-sized firm downtown. The person who onboarded the new hires, smoothed the conflicts, remembered everyone's kids' names. I was good at building trust between people. I did not yet know how bad I was at auditing my own. We married when I was 31. We rented a narrow house with a maple tree out front and a kitchen that got the morning light. Mark sold commercial flooring, and he was good at it when he wanted to be. I handled our budget, our calendar, our life. I liked being the one who held things together. It felt like love to me. The spreadsheets, the auto pay, the emergency fund I built $200 at a time. Nora came when I was 41, after years of quietly assuming she never would. I have never been so undone by anything as I was by her. She had Mark's laugh and my stubborn chin. And I remember thinking that whatever else was uncertain, this child had landed in a family that would not let her fall. On the windowsill above my sewing corner sat my mother's tin box of buttons, an old Danish cookie tin, dented at one corner, rattling with a lifetime of spare buttons. My mother had been a seamstress. She taught me that you keep the extra button, always. Because the day a coat loses one is never the day you have time to shop. I mended Nora's clothes with those buttons. It was the smallest, most ordinary thing I owned, and I loved it. I thought we were a family that kept its extra buttons. I thought we were the kind of people who could fix what came loose. Mark had grown restless that last year. Distracted, on his phone, irritated by questions. I told myself it was work. I told myself a lot of things. I was so busy holding everything together that I never once checked whether someone was quietly pulling the thread. The unraveling had been planned for months. I only got to watch it happen in a single day. Mark had been telling me for a while that we should move our emergency fund and Nora's small college savings into one account for a better rate through a friend of his. I was busy. I was tired. I trusted him. So I had added his name to everything and stopped watching as closely, because watching closely felt like an accusation, and you do not accuse the person you love. That was the door I left open. He walked through all of it in an afternoon. $47,000. The emergency fund, the college savings, the small inheritance my mother left me. He moved it, withdrew it, and closed what he could. Then he flew to Arizona, where I would learn later he had already signed a lease with a woman named Renee. He had met at a trade show 8 months before. He did not leave a note. He left a story instead. And the story was worse than the theft. Before he went, Mark had spent weeks telling people a careful version of our marriage. That I was controlling, that I hid money from him, that I had pushed him out of our finances and our home. He told it to his sister, to our neighbors, to the men at the church we attended, to half the people we knew in common. He built himself an alibi out of my reputation. So when he vanished with everything, the people around us did not see a woman who had been robbed. They saw a difficult wife whose husband had finally escaped. His sister called me cold. A neighbor I had carpooled with for 2 years stopped waving. At the one place I thought would hold me, the small congregation where I had brought casseroles and folded bulletins, I felt the temperature drop the moment I walked in with Nora on my hip. I kept saying, he took our savings, and I kept watching people decide, gently and completely, not to believe me. I remember the exact moment I stopped explaining. I was standing in a church hallway, mid-sentence, and I saw a woman I had considered a friend glance at another woman with a small, knowing look. That look said, we've heard his side. He hadn't just emptied the account. He had spent my good name to buy himself a clean getaway. And it worked. Here is what nobody tells you about being disbelieved. The poverty is survivable. The silence is what breaks you. Within 2 months, I could not make rent on the house with the maple tree. I moved Nora into a 1-bedroom apartment over a dry cleaner, where the whole place smelled faintly of steam and chemicals. And I gave her the bedroom
and slept on a pull-out couch that folded me in half every night. I lost my HR job that spring. A restructuring, they said. But I was the one restructured. And I always wondered how much of it was the story that had followed me. When you work in trust for a living, a whisper that you can't be trusted does quiet, permanent damage.
So I did what my mother would have done. I picked up the buttons. I took in mending and alterations. I posted a card at the laundromat and another at the grocery store. Hems, zippers, buttons, quick turnaround, cash. I hemmed prom dresses and let out the waists of work pants and sewed the missing buttons back onto other people's coats with buttons from my mother's dented tin. $3 a hem, $5 for a zipper. I did it at the kitchen table after Nora fell asleep, my eyes burning under a clip-on lamp. And I told myself each button was 2 more diapers, half a gallon of milk. 1 more day we stayed afloat. The first time I opened that tin box at 2 a.m. and realized I was now surviving on my mother's spare buttons, I put my head down on the fabric and cried without making a sound. Because the walls were thin, and my daughter needed to believe her mother was fine. The shunning followed me even there. A woman brought me a winter coat to fix, then came back an hour later and asked for it unfixed when someone told her whose hands were doing the sewing. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She just wanted the coat back. Nora asked me once, in the small voice children use when they already suspected the answer, why we didn't see our old friends anymore. I told her people get busy. She was 4. She let me have the lie because she loved me. That was the floor, not the empty account. The moment I had to teach my daughter to expect less from the world, so it would hurt her less when it delivered. Rock bottom taught me one useful thing. When no one is coming to save you, you stop waiting by the window. I did not have a plan for revenge. I want to be honest about that, because I know it is the part people expect. There was no scheme, no clever trap. There was only a folding table, a clip-on lamp, and a woman deciding to build a life so solid that no one's story about her could knock it down again. I went back to the one thing I was genuinely good at, helping people work well together. A temp agency placed me doing data entry at a logistics company on the east side, Halverson Freight, a mid-size firm with warehouses, dispatch teams, and constant turnover. It was $12 an hour, and beneath everything I had trained for. And I took it, and I showed up early. If you've been listening for a while, do me one quick favor. Subscribe. It costs you nothing and means everything. Within 3 months, I had quietly reorganized the onboarding paperwork no one else wanted to touch. Within a year, I was running new hire orientation because I had noticed the company was hemorrhaging people in their first 90 days, and I knew exactly why. Nobody taught them how to be trusted or how to trust the person beside them. Turnover was a people problem wearing a numbers costume, and people problems were the one language I spoke fluently. I built a training program from nothing, a 2-week certification every single new hire had to complete before they touched a shift on their own. Safety, procedure, compliance, and chain of custody. And the part I cared about most, how you earn and keep the trust of a team.
taught it myself, in a plain room with bad carpet. And I watched the 90-day numbers turn around. Then I watched them turn around again the next quarter. They promoted me. Then they promoted me again. By the 4th year, I was director of people in training. Every person who walked through that company's front door passed through a program I designed and a room I stood at the front of.
I want you to sit with the strange arithmetic of those years. Somewhere in Arizona, Mark was telling a new town a clean version of his life. Certain the wife he had erased was still exactly where he left her, folding into a pull-out couch, sewing buttons at midnight, too small and too shamed to matter. He had no reason to imagine that the woman he had described as reckless and controlling had quietly become the person other companies called an expert on trust. Somewhere in the 2nd year, I moved my mother's button tin off the midnight sewing table and onto the shelf in my new office. I did not need it to survive anymore. I kept it because it was proof. Proof that I had held things together with the smallest tools I had, and it had been enough. Nora was 7 now, and she had a mother who came home tired, but no longer afraid. That, more than any title, was the thing I had rebuilt. By the 4th year, I signed off on every new hire certification personally. It was the last gate before someone became a trusted member of a team, and I did not delegate it. I had learned the hard way what it costs to trust the wrong person. The name came to me on an ordinary Tuesday, on an ordinary roster. Halverson had won a big regional contract and was hiring a wave of dispatch and operations coordinators. 41 new hires, 1 certification cohort, 1 enrollment sheet on my desk. I was scanning it for headcount when a name near the top stopped my pen cold. Mark Sullivan, dispatch operations, start date pending certification. I sat very still. The office was quiet except for the hum of the building. I read it 3 more times to be sure the years hadn't tricked me. His references, his address, he was back in Ohio. Renee was not mentioned anywhere. He needed a job, a real one with benefits, badly enough to start at the bottom of a company he had never heard my new name attached to. And the only way into that job ran directly through my classroom. I will not pretend my hands were steady. 4 years of carefully folded grief came loose in about 4 seconds. My first feeling was not triumph. It was vertigo. The sense of 2 timelines that were never supposed to touch, suddenly sharing a piece of paper. Then my training took over. And my training is the whole point of this story. I did the correct thing first, before I let myself feel anything further. I walked to my VP's office and disclosed it. I told her plainly, one of the incoming hires is my former husband. We have a personal history. I want it on the record. She asked if I could be fair. I told her the truth. I can hold him to exactly the same standard as everyone else in that room. I said, not 1 inch higher, not 1 inch lower. She offered to reassign his certification to another trainer. I thought about it honestly. Then I said no, but bring in a second evaluator to co-sign his file, so no one could ever say I tipped the scale in either direction. She agreed. And I understood, walking back to my office, that the cleanest reckoning available to me was not to fail him out of spite. It was to be so completely fair that the fairness itself would say everything. Because here is what I already suspected. A man who once built an escape out of other people's trust does not usually learn to stop.
He just gets more confident that no one important is paying attention. Someone was paying attention now. The cohort started on a Monday. 41 adults in a plain room with bad carpet, name tags, and paper cups of coffee. Mark did not recognize me when he walked in.
I had thought about that moment for 2 weeks, and still it surprised me how completely I had become invisible to him. He scanned the front of the room, saw a composed woman in a blazer with a lanyard and a clipboard, and filed me under authority, not memory. 4 years, a different last name, a different posture. Men like Mark rarely look twice at the person deciding their future. He took a seat in the front row, gave me the easy, confident smile he gave every person he wanted something from, and got out his pen. I welcomed the cohort. I told them what the next 2 weeks would ask of them. My voice did not shake. I have learned that composure is not the absence of feeling. It is a decision about where your feeling is allowed to go. I never wanted revenge. I wanted my life back. So I stopped waiting and I went to work. Over the first week, I watched Mark do what Mark does. He charmed the room. He answered the easy questions loudly and skipped the reading. He was quick and personable and completely allergic to the parts of the work that were quiet and unglamorous. The documentation, the double checks, the procedures that exist precisely so that no one has to simply take your word for it. On the compliance and chain of custody module, the one I built out of my own ruin, the part that quietly measures whether a team can trust you with what they can't see you do, he coasted on personality and turned in the thinnest possible work. I graded it exactly as written, not harder, not softer. Where he met the standard, he passed. Where he fell short, I wrote the deficiency in plain language, with the second evaluator's initials beside mine, and I handed it back with a clear path to fix it. No adjectives, no anger on the page. Anger is not admissible, and it was not necessary.
Meanwhile, my own life had quietly filled back up while his had thinned. I learned, through the ordinary friction of a 2-week class, that this job was not a step up for Mark, but a landing after a fall. Arizona had not worked out. The money had not lasted. Renee was gone. And I felt something I did not expect. Not pity, exactly, but the strange vertigo again, of watching a man arrive exhausted and diminished at the very bottom rung of the ladder I had already climbed, without any idea that the woman holding the clipboard was the one he had pushed off it 4 years before. He was one signature away from the thing he needed, and the signature was mine. It happened on the last day of the cohort, and it did not happen the way I had imagined. We were on a 15-minute break before final evaluations. The room had emptied toward the coffee in the hallway, but Mark had drifted up to the front, to me, the way he always drifted toward whoever held the decision. He still did not know. He wanted to make sure the trainer liked him. Old habit. "I just need a chance," he said, leaning on the table with that easy grin. "I know I'm a little rusty on the paperwork side, but I'm a people person. You can tell, right? I just need somebody to give me a shot." I looked at him and said nothing that would tip it. "Everyone gets the same shot in here," I said. "You'll be evaluated on the standard." And that is the moment the door opened. A man named Tom Reyes walked in, a senior dispatch supervisor who had been at Halverson longer than I had, who had once, years ago, worked at the very first company where I'd started my career, back when I was still Diane Sullivan. He was coming to sit in on the final evaluations as the second signer. He crossed the room, clapped a friendly hand on Mark's shoulder, and said the words that ended it.
"Lucky you. You got certified by the best.
You know, Diane practically rebuilt this whole company's training from scratch. Came in as a temp, raising her little girl on her own, and now she runs the whole division." He laughed. "Don't let the calm fool you." I watched it land on Mark's face one word at a time. Diane. Raising her little girl on her own. Sullivan. The color left him the way it leaves a man when a fact he cannot afford arrives anyway. Diane? You work here?" "I run here," I said. Nothing more. The same voice I use for every file. Tom looked between us, sensed something he didn't understand, and quietly stepped to the side of the room. The break was ending. The others would be back in minutes. And for the length of one long silence, 4 years sat down at the table with us. I watched Mark do the math I had done weeks ago. The empty account, the church hallway, the buttons, the daughter he had not asked about once. I watched him understand that the person who now held the last signature he needed was the person he had decided 4 years ago was disposable. I felt a great many things in that silence. I performed none of them. I want to tell you exactly what I did next, because it is the whole point. I did not raise my voice. I did not make a speech. I did not remind him of the $47,000, or the pull-out couch, or the coat a woman took back unfixed when she learned whose hands were sewing it. I did not smile. I opened his certification file, and I let the file speak. "Here is where you stand," I said. "Your safety and procedure modules meet the standard. They pass because they meet it. That's how this works. Your compliance and chain of custody module does not. It's incomplete. That's the part that measures whether a team can trust you with what they can't see you do. That's not my opinion. It's the rubric, and Tom will co-sign it." He flinched at the word trust.
"You have until end of day to complete it to standard," I continued. "If you do the work, you certify, and you start Monday like everyone else. If you don't, you don't. The choice is entirely yours." "Diane," he said. And there it was, the old reach for the person who used to smooth his edges for other people. "Come on, you know me. After everything, you'd really hold me to the exact same line as some kid off the street?" "Yes," I said. "The exact same line. That's the kindest thing I can do for you. And it's the only thing I owe you." On the shelf behind me, in my office, visible through the open door, sat my mother's dented tin box of buttons, catching the afternoon light. Mark's eyes found it, the way you find something your body remembers before your mind does. I watched him recognize the tin he had seen 100 times on our windowsill. The buttons I had once used to hold our daughter's coat together. The buttons that had, without his ever knowing, held the two of us together through the years he was gone. I did not touch it. I did not point at it. I did not say, "This is what I survived on," while you told them I was the liar. It was never a weapon, and I would not make it one. It just sat there in the light of the room I had built, telling the truth quietly, the way I had for 4 years while no one listened. Something in him folded. Not a performance. I had seen all of his performances. This was the thing underneath them, arriving 4 years too late. "Final evaluations start in 5 minutes, I said, and I closed the file. "You should get to work." He did the work. I'll give him that.
Mark stayed late, completed the module to standard, and certified. Tom co-signed. He started that Monday in the dispatch seat, at the bottom of the company where his former wife ran the division. I passed him because he met the line. The same reason I pass anyone, and the only reason I ever would.
People who want a clean ending will not like this part. I don't either, but I promised you the truth. For a few weeks, I thought that was the whole of it, that I would simply carry the strange weight of having him in the building. Then, near the end of his first month, he asked to speak with me. Not the trainer, me. He stood in the doorway of my office, looked at the button tin on the shelf, and finally, for the first time in 4 years, said the thing he should have led with. "How is Nora?" I told him she was 7, that she was funny and stubborn and read above her grade. I did not offer him a way back into her life, and he did not ask for one. I think for once he understood he had not earned the question, let alone the answer. He apologized then, clumsily, incompletely, but not for show. He said he had spent 4 years telling a story about me that he had needed to be true, because the truth about himself was unlivable. He said he saw now what he had done, not just taken the money, but taken my name in a town that believed him. Here is the gong that still rings in me. Mark took $47,000 and 4 years of my reputation in a single afternoon. It took me 4 years to earn it all back. $12 an hour, 1 button, 1 honest paycheck, 1 certified new hire at a time. He spent my future in an afternoon. I rebuilt it slowly enough to make it permanent. The cost I can never recover is not the money. The money came back. It is the church hallway, the friends who chose his story, the coat a woman took back unfixed, the year my daughter learned to expect less of the world. Some things a person breaks do not unbreak just because he finally understands he broke them.
Understanding is not forgiveness. He never actually asked me for forgiveness. I think he knew better. He only asked, at last, the right question about our daughter. It was 4 years late, but it was at least the first true thing he had said to me since the morning he made me coffee and emptied our lives. I still have my mother's button tin. It still sits on the shelf in my office, dented at the corner, rattling with a lifetime of spare buttons. For a long time, I thought that tin was a relic of my worst years. The midnight sewing, the $3 hems, the coats returned unfixed. Now I understand it differently. My mother told me you keep the extra button because the day a thing comes loose is never the day you have time to shop. What she was really teaching me was this: you keep, quietly, the small tools that let you repair your own life without asking permission from anyone. Mark believed he could take the account and the story and leave me with nothing to hold things together. He never knew I had a tin full of exactly what I needed. Not to hurt him, to rebuild. He underestimated the woman he left sewing at midnight. So did the neighbors. So did the friends in that church hallway who chose the easier story. They all looked at a quiet woman with a needle and decided she was finished. They should have remembered what a needle and a button are actually for. They put things back together, stronger sometimes than they ever were before they came apart. If
you were sitting tonight in your own version of that pull-out couch, disbelieved, sewing your life back one small stitch at a time, I need you to hear this. You are not finished. You are being rebuilt by your own hands. And the people who wrote you off are simply not in the room to see it. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.